I took the night shift at McDonald's because it paid 50 cents more an hour. And at 18, at 50 cents felt like gold. It was the summer before college, and I was desperate to save anything I could before I left my small hometown of Calder Springs, Michigan. My name's Jenna Ruiz, and this happened almost 9 years ago. But there are parts of that summer I remember like they just happened. Some smells, some sounds, and especially one particular night I still think about when I lock my door twice. McDonald's sat off Highway 12 near the edge of town where streetlights were spread far apart and the sky looked darker than it should. The building shared a lot with a rundown bowling alley that hadn't reopened since COVID, and across the street was a patch of overgrown field that led to the woods. People always joked about that field. They said, "If something ever happened to you back there, no one would hear you scream." I thought they were being dramatic until that night. That night started like any other. I clocked in at 6 p.m., pulled my hair into a ponytail, and joined the small skeleton crew for the evening. There was Lena, my manager, who'd been working there for 10 years and could assemble a Big Mac in 12 seconds flat. Marcus, the goofy fry guy who always had earbuds in one ear, and Kim, a no-nonsense college dropout who trained me during my first week. By 10:45 p.m., the place was practically dead. Din had closed at 10 o'clock. A few cars trickled through drive-through, mostly stoned college kids or tired truckers grabbing coffee. I was on headset, leaning against the counter, waiting for another order. Then the speaker crackled. I pressed the button. "Welcome to McDonald's. Order when you're ready." Silence. I repeated it, thinking maybe they hadn't heard me. That's when a man's voice came through. Calm. Too calm. "Jenna." I froze. I hadn't said my name. Nobody there ever used our names over the speaker. "Who is this?" I asked. "You sound older now," he said. "I wasn't sure if it was you, but I think it is." I didn't know what to say. My stomach flipped. "Do I know you?" I asked slowly. "No," he said. "But I know you." The voice wasn't familiar. It was low, steady, not angry, not excited, just eerily flat. There was a pause before he added, "You look different than your pictures." Something about that line chilled me deeper than the air conditioning ever could. I instinctively stepped back from the counter, heart pounding. "There's no order," I told Marcus, who was tossing fries behind me. "I think it's a prank," he laughed. "Probably one of those dumb kids just messing with you." I nodded, pretending to agree. But when I glanced out the side window, I didn't see a car at the menu board. Yet the voice had sounded close. Too close. That should have been the end of it. But when my shift ended an hour later, I found his car waiting for me. I usually parked along the left side of the building close to the employee entrance. That night, as I walked outside with Marcus and Kim, I noticed a black sedan idling across the lot near the dumpster. The headlights were off, but the engine was running. "You see that?" I asked Marcus, nodding toward the car. He glanced at it and shrugged. "Probably someone waiting for a DoorDash pickup," he said, but something didn't sit right with me. The driver wasn't moving, just sitting watching. We said goodnight, and I walked quickly to my car, unlocking it with my fob. As I climbed in, I saw the sedan's headlights flash on. I sat still, keys in the ignition, but not turned. The sedan pulled forward. My mouth went dry. Instead of turning out toward the main road, the car rolled slowly, too slowly, across the lot and came to a stop directly behind me, blocking me in. The driver didn't get out. I didn't move. I called Marcus, but his phone rang out. I tried Kim. No answer. A minute passed, then 2. The man in the sedan flicked his high beams on. I jumped. Screw this. I opened the door, heart pounding in my ears, and ran back into the store, locking the employee entrance behind me. My hands were shaking so badly I dropped my keys. Lena was still inside, counting registers. "Jenna," she said, confused. "What are you doing back?" "There's someone outside blocking me in." She followed me to the back office where the camera feeds were. We watched together as the black sedan idled. Then the driver's door opened. A man stepped out, tall, wearing a gray hoodie and holding something in his hand. At first, I thought it was a drink. Then I realized it was a phone and he was taking pictures of my car. I backed away from the screen. "What the hell is this?" Lena called the police. The moment the word police was said out loud, the man seemed to hear it. He suddenly got back in the car, reversed hard, and peeled out of the lot so fast he kicked up gravel. By the time a cruiser showed up 15 minutes later, he was gone. The officer took a statement, asked if I knew the guy. I didn't and said they'd keep an eye out. But there were no plates on the car, not a temporary tag, nothing. Lena walked me to my car and waited while I drove off. I didn't go straight home. I drove in a few circles first just to be sure I wasn't being followed. When I finally got home, I didn't sleep. I locked my bedroom door for the first time in years. You'd think that would have been the end of it. But 2 nights later, I worked again. And this time, he didn't use the drive-thru. At 11:12 p.m., Lena and Marcus were in the back freezer taking inventory. I was wiping down the counter in front. The front door dinged. I looked up, expecting a delivery driver or someone needing a bathroom. Instead, a man in a gray hoodie walked in, head down. I felt my body go cold. He didn't go to the counter. He just stood by the drink machine. Then softly he said, "You look good tonight." I dropped the rag. My throat tightened. It was the voice from the speaker. "Lena," I called loudly, "can you come up here?" The man didn't flinch. He turned his head just enough to look at me, and I saw something in his eyes that made my skin crawl. Recognition, like he knew everything about me. I stepped back. "Sir, we're closed to dine in." He didn't respond, just turned slowly, walked out the front door, and vanished. Lena came out. I told her what happened, shaking. We locked the front door for the rest of the night. After that, I stopped parking out front. I started having my dad drop me off. I told him just enough to make it seem like a weird prank. Left out the details so he wouldn't panic. But the man wasn't done. 2 weeks later, I came home from a late shift and noticed something wedged in our front screen door. A photo of my car in the McDonald's lot. Underneath was a single word, "Hi," scribbled in red ink. My legs buckled. My dad called the cops. They said they'd file a report but couldn't do much without a license plate or name. I stopped working nights after that, transferred to mornings. I never saw him again. But I still wonder, how did he know my name that first night? Why me? And what would have happened if I hadn't run? Years have passed. I've moved cities, got a new job, new life. But sometimes late at night when I'm at a drive-thru and the speaker crackles before anyone speaks, I freeze and I remember the voice that said, "You sound older now," and wonder where he is now, or worse, who else he's listening to. I used to work at the McDonald's in Willow Creek, a sleepy little town that only had 3 main things: a gas station, a laundromat, and our restaurant. The store was old, not remodeled, not shiny like the newer ones. Ours still had that faded red and yellow tile, squeaky booths, and the smell of grease that never washed out. I was 19, broke, and stuck in that place after high school. My shifts rotated a lot, but the worst ones were always nights. The freezer room was the thing that bothered me the most. Everyone who worked there hated it. It was a giant walk-in cooler and freezer combo, the kind you stepped into to grab burger patties or boxes of nuggets. The door always made this horrible squealing noise when you opened it, and it was heavy as hell, slamming shut behind you like it was glad you came in. My first week there, Maria, one of the older employees, pulled me aside and said, "Don't ever go in the freezer after midnight." I laughed. "Why?" She didn't smile back. "Because sometimes something comes out with you." I brushed it off as a joke, but I noticed she never volunteered to do freezer runs at night. None of the older workers did. One Thursday night, it was just me and Kenny, my shift manager. Around 12:30 a.m., Kenny asked me to grab another box of nuggets. The drive-thru had been packed with drunk college kids, and we were almost out. I groaned but nodded, slipping on the stupid paper hat we had to wear and pushing open the freezer door. It was colder than usual. My breath fogged instantly and the air felt thicker, like the cold wasn't just temperature but something pressing against me. I grabbed the nuggets quick, ready to get the hell out, but when I turned, the door wasn't there. I spun in circles, panic rising. The shelves stretched on and on like the freezer had grown. My footsteps echoed too loud, bouncing back at me, delayed like someone was following. I ran. My shoes slipped on the icy floor, but finally I saw the outline of the door. Relief hit me, until I noticed the frost. The inside of the door was coated in thick ice like it had been sealed shut for years. Behind me I heard it. A dragging sound like bare feet scraping across ice, slow, purposeful. I didn't want to turn, but I did. Something was standing between the shelves. It looked human but wrong. Its skin was pale, bluish, stretched thin. Its mouth hung open like it had been frozen mid-scream, ice crystallized around its lips. Its eyes were cloudy white and it dripped, water and frost pooling where it stood. It raised a hand, and the sound it made was like cracking ice. I pounded on the door. "Kenny! Open up!" I screamed, fists aching. For a horrible second I thought no one would hear. Then the door flew open and I stumbled out, gasping. Kenny looked pissed. "What the hell were you doing in there so long?" he snapped. I tried to explain, but the words stuck in my throat. He rolled his eyes, shoved the nuggets into the fryer and said, "Newbies always freak out about the freezer. You'll get used to it, but I couldn't get used to it." Over the next few weeks, I started noticing weird things. Sometimes when I opened the freezer, boxes were stacked differently, like someone had moved them around. Sometimes I'd hear faint knocks from inside, even when no one was in there. One time, Maria was refilling the ice machine and froze, staring at the freezer door. I asked what was wrong, and she whispered, "It's looking at us." The final straw came about a month later. I was closing alone when Kenny went out for a smoke break. I had to grab another bag of fries. I told myself I could do it quick, just grab it and leave. The second I stepped inside, the door slammed shut, hard. I dropped the fries and ran for it, but the handle was stuck. I yanked it over and over, my breath fogging the air into a thick mist. That's when I felt it. A hand on my shoulder, but it wasn't warm. It was so cold it burned. My whole arm went numb instantly. I turned, and that thing was inches from my face. Frost clung to its skin, its cloudy eyes locked onto mine. Its mouth stretched wide, and for the first time I heard it speak. "Stay with me." I screamed and slammed my shoulder into the door one last time. It gave. I spilled out into the kitchen, arm burning like it was frostbitten. Kenny rushed in asking what the hell happened, but I couldn't even answer. I quit 2 days later. Maria hugged me before I left and whispered, "You were smart to go. Most of us don't leave in time." That freezer still haunts me, literally. Some nights I still wake up gasping, my arm numb and aching like that frozen hand is still gripping me. And sometimes when I dream, I hear it whisper again, "Stay with me." When people think of McDonald's, they think of Happy Meals, cheap burgers, and the play place. Those bright plastic tunnels and slides where kids go feral while parents sip burnt coffee. But the one at my town's McDonald's was different. Even as a kid, it gave me a weird feeling. The plastic was faded, some tunnels smelled like mildew, and the ball pit was removed years ago after an accident no one ever explained. By the time I was 20, I'd stopped being scared of it. I was working night shifts there, cleaning up after closing. The play place was always part of my duties. Wiping the glass, vacuuming the carpet, making sure no kids left trash inside the slides. I hated going in there after midnight. The air was too still, too heavy, like the fun had been sucked out and replaced with something else. One night, around 1:15 a.m., I was mopping the tile near the play place when I heard it. A laugh. High-pitched, childlike but wrong. Too sharp, echoing like it didn't belong to a real kid. I froze. The restaurant was empty, doors locked, co-workers in the back. I walked closer, heart pounding. "Hello?" I called out. No answer. But the tunnel creaked, like someone crawling through it. I grabbed the mop handle like a weapon and shined my phone flashlight inside. The tunnels were empty, just dirty plastic and lost socks. I shook my head, telling myself it was my imagination. But then I saw him. At the very top of the play place, behind the foggy plastic bubble where kids normally press their faces, a man was crouched. His body folded awkwardly into the space, knees pressed to his chest. His face was pale, stretched into a grin too wide. His eyes were black, completely black. He pressed his hands against the plastic, leaving behind greasy smears. Then he leaned forward and whispered, though I couldn't hear the words. The sound was muffled, but my ears rang anyway, like his voice was inside my head. I stumbled back, screaming for Kenny, my manager at the time. He rushed over, saw me pointing, and grabbed a flashlight. But when he shined it into the bubble, it was empty. "You're overworked," he said, shaking his head. "Go grab a soda, take 5. But I couldn't shake what I'd seen. Over the next week, things escalated. A little girl in the lobby once pointed at the play place and asked her mom, "Why is that man smiling at me?" But no one was there. A delivery guy swore he saw someone crawling out of the tunnel at 3 a.m., only for the figure to vanish when he blinked. I kept finding greasy handprints on the inside of the bubble even after scrubbing it spotless. The final night I worked there, I was closing alone. Kenny had left early, trusting me to lock up. Around 2:40 a.m., I heard it again, the laugh. This time it was closer. The play place lights flickered on by themselves one by one until the whole structure glowed. My phone buzzed in my pocket, a text from an unknown number. "Come play with me." My chest tightened. I backed toward the exit, fumbling with the keys. But the play place tunnels groaned, plastic bending as if something big was crawling through them. Then he appeared again. The man. His face pressed against the bubble, eyes blacker than ever. His grin stretched impossibly wide, teeth scraping the plastic. "Don't leave yet," his voice hissed in my head. "I saved you a spot." The plastic bulged outward like he was about to break through. I didn't wait. I dropped the keys, shoved the door open with my shoulder, and ran into the parking lot barefoot. I didn't go back. I quit the next morning by text. But I still drive past that McDonald's sometimes, and when I do, I swear I see a pale face in the play place bubble, grinning at the cars passing by. I never planned on working at Benny's Burgers. It wasn't exactly a dream job for anyone in Greystone, Indiana. The place was a knockoff McDonald's, right down to the red and yellow color scheme and the cheaply printed paper crowns they gave to kids. The food was greasy, the floors were sticky, and the sign out front buzzed and flickered like a bug zapper that never caught a break. But in 2019, after I graduated high school, I didn't have the luxury of choice. My mom was bedridden with lupus flare-ups, bills were piling up, and community college tuition wasn't going to pay itself. Benny's was open 24/7, which meant they always needed warm bodies willing to work nights. The pay was crap, but it was steady, and the night shift came with an extra $1 an hour. That mattered when you were counting quarters for gas. Most nights it was just me and Louise, the closing cook. Louise was in his 30s, soft-spoken, a little pudgy, with long hair always tied back under a bandana. He smoked too much, but he was kind. He called me kiddo, even though I was 19, and sometimes he snuck me free shakes when the manager wasn't looking. Greystone itself was small, too small. A place where everyone knew your face, if not your name. The plaza where Benny sat had been dying since I was a kid. Half the stores were shuttered, an old video rental, a laundromat with machines older than me, and a dollar store that seemed to survive out of sheer stubbornness. Benny's was the last place with steady business, mostly because it was cheap and open at odd hours. But the building itself, it had a reputation. People said it was cursed. Back in the 80s, when it was an insurance office, 3 employees jumped off the roof over the span of a month. No note, no explanation, nothing. Just walked out, climbed up, and stepped off. My mom said the town never talked about it openly, but everyone remembered. I used to laugh it off. Superstition, right? Old towns love ghost stories, but the more nights I worked there, the less funny it felt. The freezer door would swing open on its own, though no draft could explain it. Light bulbs flickered in patterns, not random, but like Morse code. Sometimes when I mopped the lobby after midnight, I swore I heard a second pair of footsteps behind me, only to spin around and find nothing. I told myself it was just nerves, just exhaustion, just me. Until November 12th, 2024. That's the night I stopped laughing. 2. The routine. That Tuesday started like any other. Louise left early around 10:30 p.m. His girlfriend picked him up and I told him I'd finish cleanup. It wasn't unusual. Sometimes she got off early from her nursing shifts and he wanted to see her before she crashed. I didn't mind. I liked the quiet, the hum of the fryers, the hiss of the soda machine, the faint buzz of that cursed sign outside. Plus, I wasn't truly alone. My boyfriend, Jaden, had a habit of swinging by on nights I worked. He worked odd construction hours, so he was usually up late anyway. He'd sit in the back booth munching leftover fries and keep me company until I locked up. Sometimes we talked about bills, sometimes about music or memes. Sometimes we didn't talk at all, just sat there in the soft light of the empty restaurant, two kids trying to figure life out. That night I texted him around 10:45. Me. Come through. I'm bored. Bring Reese's, please, Jaden. On my way. 15 minutes, max. I smiled at my phone, tucked it back in my apron, and kept sweeping the lobby. 3. The first sign. By 11:15, Jaden still hadn't shown. No new texts. I shrugged it off. Maybe he stopped for gas or ran into traffic. I checked the monitor screens above the drive-through window. They were old, black and white, grainy as hell, but I could usually catch headlights when a car turned into the lot. Tonight, nothing. That's when I noticed it. Camera 3, the one facing the lobby doors, flickered. Just once, like static on a TV. When it cleared, I thought I saw something. A shadow, tall and smooth, crossing in front of the glass. My heart leapt, probably Jaden trying to mess with me. I decided I'd mess with him back. I ducked behind the counter, crouching, grinning to myself. The door chime dinged, that soft electronic beep I'd heard 1,000 times. I waited. 5 seconds, 10, 15, no footsteps, no voice, no door closing. The air pressed heavy against my ears. Jaden? I whispered, popping my head up. The lobby was empty, the door was shut, and outside, the parking lot stretched silent and still under the buzzing streetlight. 4. The alley. I stood slowly, broom in hand, like a weapon. Not funny, I muttered, forcing a laugh. The restroom hallway was empty, the booths were empty, even the soda machine seemed too quiet. That's when I heard it. A metallic crash. It came from the alley where the dumpsters sat. I jumped, my pulse spiking. For a second I froze, every instinct screaming stay inside. But then another thought cut through. What if Jaden fell? What if he's hurt? I pushed through the side door, cold air slapping me awake. The alley smelled like grease and rotting lettuce. The steel trash can was dented, knocked clean over. The lid rolled in lazy circles before clattering flat. I stared, heart thudding. No wind, no raccoons, just silence. That's when I heard my name. Maya! I spun so fast I nearly slipped. Jaden was running toward me from the lot, out of breath, eyes wide. Did you see that? He gasped. See what? I asked, my voice cracking. Someone jumped off the roof. Right here, he pointed above us to the flat roof of Benny's. I swear to God, Maya. They landed by the trash. I shook my head, my stomach twisting. No one landed. I was here. I saw it. His hands trembled as he grabbed my arms. I know I saw it. The trash can. The crash. I swallowed hard. Let's just go inside. Kit. 5. The kitchen back in the restaurant. I locked the doors tight. Jaden poured himself a Sprite, trying to calm down, but his hands still shook. I thought Louise was working tonight, he said suddenly. He left an hour ago. His face drained. I thought I saw someone walk into the kitchen when I came in. A chill shot up my spine. "There's no one here," I whispered. "I swear, Maya." Someone tall, in black. We crept toward the kitchen together. The door swung slightly, creaking. I pushed it open with the broom. Empty. "See?" I forced a laugh. "Draft!" Then the fryer roared to life. Oil bubbled like lava, steam rising in thick, choking waves. I jumped back, coughing. "What the hell?" I cried. "I turned everything off." I jabbed the control panel, but nothing responded. Then the lights flickered, and in that half-second of darkness I saw it. A figure in the doorway, tall, still, watching. When the lights came back, it was gone. 6. The escape. Jaden didn't wait. "We need to go." My hands shook as I grabbed the keys. I dropped them once, twice before he snatched them and shoved open the door. We sprinted to his car, gravel crunching underfoot. Inside, gasping, I looked back and froze. In the window of Benny's upper left pane, a silhouette stood, watching. Its eyes glowed faint white. We didn't speak the whole drive to my house. That night, Jaden slept on my floor. Neither of us closed our eyes. 7. The aftermath. I told my manager the next morning that the fryer malfunctioned, that the lights blew out, that I needed a few days. I left out the shadow, the glowing eyes. But I did some digging. Old newspapers, library archives, scraps of gossip from town elders. The building hadn't just been an insurance office. Before that, it was a diner in the 60s. A man had died there, grease fire trapped in the kitchen, burned alive. Some said he'd been wearing a clown costume for a kid's birthday party earlier that day. Others said he was a janitor who snapped. Every version was different, but the ending was the same. He died in fire and grease. And sometimes they said he still came back, hungry. 8. The return. I never worked another night shift, transferred to mornings, but once in a while when I drive past Benny's after dark, I glance at the windows. And sometimes I swear I see him still standing there, tall, silent, watching, waiting for someone to leave the fryer on, waiting for someone to take his order. And I wonder if the next unlucky kid will hear what I did that night, whispered just loud enough to freeze the blood in their veins. "Order ready? Clown meat, extra fries." Opening. The night shift. Most people never think about what happens in a McDonald's after closing. They see the commercials, bright, friendly, golden arches lighting up a busy street, kids laughing in the play place, families eating happy meals under the fluorescent glow. What they don't see are the hours after midnight, when the lobby is dark, the fryers are hissing to themselves, and the only sound is the low buzz of machines that never sleep. That's when the silence creeps in. That's when you start to notice things you'd normally ignore. I was 23 when I worked nights at a McDonald's just off Interstate 75 in Indiana. It wasn't glamorous, but it paid better than my last job stocking shelves at Dollar General. My shift usually started at 6 p.m. and went until close, sometimes 2 a.m., sometimes 3, depending on traffic. There were usually 3 of us, me, my coworker Marcus, and our night manager Denise. Denise was in her 40s, tough as nails, and had been working at McDonald's longer than I'd been alive. Marcus was my age, tall, funny, the kind of guy who could make an 8-hour shift go by in half the time. And then there was the play place. Not every McDonald's had one anymore, but ours did. A massive structure of red, yellow, and blue plastic tubes, slides, and platforms. To kids, it was a kingdom. To us, it was a pain in the ass to clean. The ball pit alone smelled like a swamp if you didn't stay on top of it. But the thing that really got me wasn't the smell. It was the lights, the play place lights. The play place had its own set of overhead fluorescent lights, buzzing tubes that gave everything a pale, sickly glow. The bulbs were ancient, always flickering, always humming like flies in the walls. Denise swore she turned them off every night when we locked the lobby, but somehow they'd flicker back to life. Sometimes halfway through the night, I'd look up from the drive-through monitor and see that awful green-white glow shining through the glass wall. Buzz. Flicker. Buzz. Marcus hated it even more than I did. He said it gave him headaches. He'd mutter under his breath every time we passed it. Creepy-ass clown lights. One night in late September, I learned he wasn't exaggerating. The first laughter. It was close to midnight, a Tuesday, dead quiet. Marcus was mopping, Denise was counting down registers in the back office, and I was refilling sauces near the prep station. That's when the drive-through headset crackled. "Hello," I said automatically. "Welcome to McDonald's. Can I take your order?" Silence. I frowned and glanced at the monitor. No car, no headlights in the lane, just empty pavement. "Hello?" I tried again. That's when I heard it. A laugh, high-pitched. A child's laugh, soft and quick, like someone giggling from the other end of a tunnel. I froze. Every hair on my arm stood up. Marcus looked over. "You hear that?" I swallowed. "Yeah." He set the mop aside and came to check the monitor. Nothing. "Probably some asshole with a walkie-talkie," he muttered. But he didn't sound convinced. We both went to the window, peering out into the night. Empty parking lot. Not a car in sight. But when my eyes drifted to the play place, my stomach sank. The big red slide, the one that curled down into the ball pit, was swaying. Just slightly, like something had crawled through it. Stories from Marcus, I wanted to laugh it off, but Marcus wouldn't let it go. "You know my cousin worked here, right?" he said later when we were wiping down the fry station. "Yeah?" He told me once he saw a kid in there after close. Thought it was some family that forgot their kid, but when he went to check, the place was empty. Door was locked. Cameras didn't catch shit. I raised an eyebrow. "And you believe him?" Marcus shrugged. "He's not the type to make stuff up." I didn't argue, but I couldn't shake the image of that red slide moving. The thump. A week later, it happened again. It was just me and Marcus. Denise had gone home early, trusting us to close. Around 12:30, I was sweeping when the play place lights buzzed brighter, like they were struggling to burn out. Marcus groaned. "Man, I told Denise to fix that shit." Then we both heard it. Thump. From inside the play place. We froze. Thump. It sounded like something dropping into the ball pit. Marcus grabbed my arm. "Don't move." I wanted to laugh, but my throat was dry. Slowly we turned toward the glass wall. The ball pit was shifting. Plastic balls rolling over each other like something was crawling beneath. And then a head popped up. A little girl, pale wet hair clinging to her face, skin grayish like she'd been underwater too long. Eyes dark as empty sockets. She stared right at us, smiling. Marcus whispered, "Jesus Christ." Before I could move, she sank back down, disappearing into the pit without making a sound. The lights flickered once, twice, then went out. The play place went pitch black. The frame on the camera. The next day, Denise called us both into the office. She looked pale, tired. "You boys messing around last night?" she asked. Marcus and I exchanged glances. "No," I said. She turned the monitor toward us. It showed the security footage from 12:32 a.m. The play place, dark, empty. Except for one frame. Just one. Frozen at 12:32:14. The girl, standing in the ball pit, hair dripping, mouth stretched into a grin that was too wide, too sharp. I felt sick. "We don't have this on the rest of the feed," Denise whispered. "Just this one frame, like it was burned into the tape." She turned to us, her face hard. "Don't tell anyone." Corporate doesn't like stories. Marcus quit a week later. The return I lasted another month. Bills don't pay themselves. But every shift I felt eyes on me. I avoided the play place, kept my head down. Then came the night I couldn't ignore it anymore. It was storming, rain hammering the roof. I was alone in the lobby wiping tables. The play place lights buzzed on by themselves, glowing brighter than I'd ever seen. And then I heard it. Laughter. Dozens of children, echoing, bouncing off the plastic tubes. I dropped the rag and stumbled back. The tubes shook, slides rattled, balls churned in the pit as if something, no, many things, were were moving inside. And then, pressed against the glass, a pale hand. Small, wet, another, and another. Tiny faces appeared in the tubes, hollow eyes, grinning mouths, all watching me. The lights exploded, popping like gunshots, and just like that, darkness. When the emergency lights flickered on, the place was empty, but the glass was smeared with wet handprints. Ending, I quit that night, walked out, never went back. They hired new closers, but word spread fast. The place lights never stayed off, no matter what they tried. Last I heard, corporate shut that McDonald's down for renovations. But I still drive past sometimes. The building is dark, the sign unlit, but the place, the lights are always on. And if you look closely enough through the glass, you'll see the balls moving, like something's waiting. There are two kinds of people who work the night shift at McDonald's. The first group are the lifers, older folks who've been in food service for decades, the kind of people who can flip a quarter-pounder with their eyes closed and count a register drawer down to the last penny without a calculator. They treat the job like muscle memory. The second group are the drifters, people like me. Mid-20s, hopping job to job, just trying to make rent and scrape by. Nights were all I could get, and I didn't mind at first. The hours were quiet, no screaming kids, no lunch rush panic. But quiet can turn on you. Quiet gives space for other things to crawl in. The McDonald's I worked at was on the edge of town near the bypass. Half its business came from truckers pulling off the highway. The rest came from drunks after last call. By midnight, it was usually just me, my co-worker Sophia, and our night manager Clyde. The lobby was supposed to close at 11, doors locked, lights out. But corporate always wanted us to keep the space inviting, so Clyde left a few lights on near the big glass windows. From outside, you'd think the place was still open. Warm, glowing booths, the golden arches humming in the distance. That always bugged me. I hated the thought of strangers pulling into an empty lobby, pressing their faces to the glass while we worked inside, like fish in a tank. And then there was the playground booth. The playground booth, ours, didn't have a full play place anymore. It had been torn out in the 2000s, replaced with a smaller kids' corner, a half playground with a couple of booths, some cheap murals of cartoon fries and burgers, and an old fiberglass clown bench no one used. But in the far corner next to the windows, there was one booth that always looked wrong. The cushions were the same faded red as the others, the table the same sticky laminate. But no matter how many times we cleaned it, the glass behind that booth was streaked with handprints, always smeared from the outside in. We'd scrub them every night, and by the next shift, they'd be back. Clyde joked it was ghost customers. Sophia said kids probably pressed their faces to the glass after close, but I never saw them do it. Not once. And when the reflection hit the window just right, sometimes it looked like someone was sitting there. The first sight. It was mid-October, a Tuesday night around 1 a.m. Sophia had gone to take out trash. Clyde was on his smoke break, and I was wiping down tables in the lobby. That's when I saw him. A man sitting in the playground booth. He was still as stone, dressed in something dark. Couldn't tell if it was a coat or just shadow. His head was tilted down, face hidden. At first I thought Clyde had let some homeless guy slip in. We got that sometimes, people trying to nap in the booths. I opened my mouth to call out, and then I remembered. The doors were locked. Every door, every window. I froze, rag dripping bleach water onto the floor. The man didn't move, didn't breathe. I blinked, and the booth was empty. Just red cushions and streaked glass. Sophia's story. I didn't tell Clyde. He would have laughed it off. But later that night, I pulled Sophia aside. "You ever see someone in the playground booth?" I asked. Her face went pale. "So you've seen him too?" That chilled me worse than anything. She swore she'd seen him twice. First time, she thought it was her reflection. Second time, she swore he was smiling at her. "Clyde doesn't believe me," she whispered. "But I know what I saw." We made a pact right there. never clean that booth alone. The footsteps. A week later, I was in the stockroom grabbing cups when I heard it. Footsteps in the lobby. Not Clyde, not Sophia. Heavy, deliberate steps across the tile. I crept to the door and peeked out. Empty. Except the playground booth wasn't empty anymore. Someone sat there, hunched forward, elbows on the table, head down. The man. I couldn't see his face, couldn't even tell if he had one. Just darkness where his features should be. And then, without lifting his head, he tapped one finger against the table. Slow, measured, tap, tap, tap. I stumbled back, heart in my throat. When I looked again, the booth was empty, but the sound kept going. Tap, 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 coming from the stockroom table behind me. The security feed. I begged Clyde to check the cameras. He rolled his eyes but humored me. We scrubbed through the lobby footage, frame by frame. Nothing. Then we got to 12:47 a.m. One frame, just one. The playground booth. A man sitting there. Face blurred, body too long for the booth, knees bent up at sharp angles. His hand was flat on the table, fingers spread wide. The next frame? Empty. Clyde cursed and shut the monitor. Glitch, he muttered. That's all it is. But I could see the sweat beading on his forehead. The smell. After that, things escalated. We started smelling things at night. Not fries, not bleach. Something sour, metallic, like rust and rot. It would drift in strongest near the playground booth. Sometimes the lights over that corner would flicker, buzzing like hornets. One night, Sophia swore she saw condensation on the inside of the glass, like someone was breathing on it from the outside. When she leaned closer, words appeared. Let him in. She screamed, and by the time Clyde came running, the glass was clear. The knock. The final night I worked there, it stormed so hard the power flickered. Only the emergency light stayed on, leaving the lobby half dark. Sophia refused to go near the playground booth. I didn't blame her. But as we were finishing up, the sound came. Knock, knock, knock. From the glass, we all froze. Another knock, louder, and then a shape pressed against the window, a man's face, pale, features distorted against the glass. His eyes were black pits, his mouth stretched in a smile that didn't belong on a human face. The handprints spread across the window, dozens of them overlapping, pressing harder and harder until the glass groaned. And then, silence. The lights flickered back on. The window was empty. But the playground booth wasn't. He was sitting there, closer than ever, head up this time, smiling at us. The ending. I quit the next morning. Sophia too. Clyde lasted another week before walking out mid-shift. That McDonald's shut down a month later. Officially it was renovations, but I drive past sometimes. The golden arches are dark. The lot is empty. And in the window by the playground booth, sometimes I swear I see a man sitting there, head bowed, waiting.